Climate change, extreme weather, and government policy. It's a lot to keep up with. So today we've brought in the chair of geography and the environment, Dr. Trevis Matheus. So let's get into it. Let's start simple. What's the difference between climate and the environment? These terms are used interchangeably, but I get the sense they're different.
Yeah, they are different. The best comparison I've heard is that weather is like your mood, whereas climate is more like your personality. So weather deals with the short-term fluctuations, the day-to-day fluctuations. Is it cold out? Is it hot out? Is it sunny? Is it raining? That kind of a thing. Where climate deals with these more long-term trends and more like an annual average, so like annual average temperatures, annual average rainfall, wind, and other variables.
So when someone says it's cold today, obviously climate change isn't real. What's the best way to respond to that?
So 2024 was the hottest year on record for the 175 years that we've been keeping records. And additionally, for the last 20 years, almost every single year was warmer than the year before it. Another way of looking at that is that for the last 20 years, almost every year, we've set a new record global temperature. So I get this a lot because everyone likes to talk about the weather. It's a really easy topic to talk about. But just because we've had a cold day or even a week or days doesn't necessarily mean that climate change isn't happening. That's just that short-term trend in a day-to-day fluctuation. It gets at the difference between weather and climate. So climate is focusing more on those long-term trends and those long-term patterns.
What role does the federal government play historically in climate and weather issues?
So, for the early half of the 20th century, our most advanced weather tracking system was basically someone in a boat offshore, radioing onshore what the weather was like there. And then from that, we could kind of guess what the weather is going to be like for the next couple of days. We've come a long ways from that because the government has funded the National Weather Service and NOAA. And from that, we can predict much more accurately what the weather is going to be like. Without this funding for the National Weather Service and NOAA, we won't be able to predict what the weather is going to be like at the end of the week, much less what the weather is going to be like for the next 50 to 100 years. And additionally, the policies that have led to layoffs with the National Weather Service and NOAA personnel is going to really affect our ability to conduct critical climate and weather research, as well as weather forecasting.
Can you talk about why the layoffs at NOAA and NWS might matter to the average person?
Yeah, so you use your phone to check the weather, right? Many of these apps, including the ones on your phone, use the data from the National Weather Service and NOAA. Since the layoffs have happened, the National Weather Service has had to reduce the number of weather balloons it launches every day. This might seem trivial, but it's really important for driving these models. So it's really hard for us to forecast what's going on if we don't have that data. And so it makes it hard to tell you if you need to pack an umbrella for the day. But it also is more importantly, it's very hard to forecast for more critical events like hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods.
What are some of the arguments for and against federal government setting climate policies?
So if the federal government doesn't set a policy, then who will? It's really important that we're all on the same page with the climate policy so that we can work towards a common goal of reducing our carbon footprint. For example, the state of California has a very progressive climate policy. The state has really focused on renewing its electrical grid to make it more efficient, as well as increasing renewable energy and subsidizing electric cars. But some states may not have a climate policy and may be focusing more on resource extraction. And global climate change is a global issue, just like it sounds like. And so what happens is if one state increases its carbon emissions and one state decreases its carbon emissions by the same amount, it's a net zero effect. And so it's really important that we're all on the same page working towards the same goal. I'm not sure what an argument against having a climate policy would be, but it seems like the current administration's stance is focused on having a small government and reducing the number of environmental oversights.
Let's talk about recent climate policies in the US. How are they already impacting CO2 levels and resource extraction?
So, right now, we're living through a pivotal time in climate policy and energy policy. Many things in our zeitgeist, like AI and cryptocurrency, are hugely power intensive. For example, a simple AI query uses 5 to 10 times as much energy as a similar Google search. And so, our climate policies and our energy policies are intrinsically linked. And so, if we want to reduce our carbon footprint, we need to focus on renewable energy and focusing on solar, wind, and nuclear.
You mentioned AI. Can you walk us through how ChatGPT impacts the environment?
Generative AI requires a lot of server space. And so while we have a cloud and Google is on servers, so when you do a Google search, it goes to the same thing, it goes to a server. Generative AI needs much more server space. And so it needs much more energy to have a simple query because it's working a lot harder. And one of the ways that we cool server farms is with water. And so it requires much more water as well. So you're using much more power, which is going to increase our carbon footprint, as well as using a significant amount more water.
Are there any policies you see emerging right now that seem like they're either a step in the right direction or the wrong direction?
Unfortunately, most of the federal policies are a step in the wrong direction. And the new policies are focusing on rolling back restrictions related to natural resource extraction, making it easier and cheaper to extract resources like coal, natural gas, and oil. And But fortunately, in the past, we have had very progressive policies, and we were part of the Paris Climate Agreement, which focused on ratcheting back carbon emissions, as well as leapfrogging developing countries into renewable energy. And previous policies have also focused on renewable energies and the power grid, as well as carbon capture and sequestration, which focus on removing carbon from the atmosphere. And all those things can reduce our carbon footprint.
For people who aren't in science or politics, why should they even care about this topic? How might it affect their everyday life?
So we're already living through the impacts of climate change. We're facing unprecedented fires, floodings, droughts, species extinctions, as well as counterintuitively large-scale freezing events that are the result of climate change. And the policies that we're making now are going to affect our lives for many years to come. Coal-powered power plant has a lifespan of about 50 years. So a new power plant would have an impact on climate change for the next 2 to 3 generations.
What can students and everyday citizens do if they want to make an impact?
So I think it's easy to feel despair right now with everything that's going on. But there are a lot of grassroots organizations that students can be involved with. So one example is the Citizens Climate Lobby that works towards lobbying your senators and your representatives to make meaningful climate changes and related to policy. Another place that students could easily get involved with is their local Sierra Club likely has a climate chapter. And so that's a good place to start.
For those feeling despair right now and feeling like individual actions don't matter in the scheme of things, have you seen any examples of either individual or small group actions making a difference?
Yeah, so there's actually quite a few different examples. One thing is that we live in a capitalist society. And so if you don't like something that a big company or corporation is doing, don't go there. You can boycott it. And you can already see this happening where people are boycotting companies that don't have favorable policies and their stocks are falling. At the individual level, oftentimes you don't have to decide between being a climate activist and having a very positive impact on the environment. It makes it easier if you look at the fact that it's also can help save you money. It may be hard to afford an electric car, for example, but an electric car is going to reduce your gas bill. It may be much easier to reuse things, and that's also going to save you money as well. And so at the individual level, you don't necessarily have to look at it as, well, it's, there's so much despair and I can't make a difference. You can also look at it as a difference in your pocketbook. And I also get asked, like, so, why should we care? Why should we care about climate change? And even if you are in the camp that believes climate change isn't real, the most that we have to lose is cleaner air for breathing.
Dr. Matthews, thank you so much for helping us connect the dots between weather, climate, and policies. If our viewers want to know more, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can take a class in geography. I teach 3 different classes on weather and climate. One is called weather and climate. One is called meteorology, which focuses on weather forecasting. And another one is global climate change.